Good. Live on, well, at the moment on the Reclaim Our Carnival webpage, but Facebook page.
Right, Toby?
Yes, you are, Zita. Busy working up to this and other things, just I don't even know really, days are just going past and I don't know.
You have to sit down and take stock. Otherwise before you know you say, where am I?
Yeah. Exactly. So like some time just out at the moment. Exactly that. Just take stock and see what's what really. But there's lots going on. But just trying to get around all of this stuff at the moment. It's a pretty deep news now. Welcome. Yes, you are. Yes, you good.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Resubmitted my evidence for the 5th time.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. What evidence? What are we talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
Toby?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
You're right. Thank you. Anything. Really grateful.
So well.
And you're going to be the independent observer at the next Community Advice Board meeting in December.
Yes. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So that is your place is on there. Okay, we'll be starting soon.
Cool.
But I remember having that feeling last morning.
I've got put together something if we're going to get a chance to speak. I've put together something.
Say how.
people take a seat. That's it. One, two, one, two.
One, two, and three, yeah.
One, two, one, two. Okay. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the village, Bay 56, for a very historical moment. Something's taking part now. It's going to happen that hasn't happened yet in the history of the relationship between the community and the Westway Trust. So that's what we're here today to look into and deal with and start a process that is about healing and reparatory justice. Yeah? So welcome to the village. The village historically is known as Bay 56. Yeah? But on the 14th of June last year, in the wake of the Grenfell Tower fire, the work that was done in here by the community, it became affectionately known as the village. Yeah? Going on. Now, within the village, we also have another name, and it's to do with the symbol that's on the front of the building that you see when you come in. It's an Adinkra symbol from Ghana, and it's called Meridani. Yeah? And Meridani means time changes. That's what the symbol on the front of this building means, changing times. Yeah? So it's apt for the process that we're in at the moment in redefining our community and starting to take control of our environment in terms of doing that healing work. So what today is really about is about people coming and getting engaged in the process that's been set up. We've had our criticisms of these processes in the past, and that's why we're here now. Yeah? Because the processes in the past have been dealt with people investigating themselves, right? And finding no problem within that investigation. This is a different process now because as a community, we are involved in the process. Yeah? So I'm co-chairing the community advisory group with Alan Brown. Yeah? That's so we have an oversight of everything that's going on, and that what has happened in the past can't happen on this occasion. Now I'm confident if this process is dealt with properly, that we will have to move forward, because what we know as a community as fact needs to become historical fact also, so we can move forward. Too many times it's been said that these are our perceptions, yeah? But our experience has real results, yeah? And real disenfranchisement and real economic opportunity costs for our community, that by this time going on 40, 50 years, we're looking at something that you can't even quantify in terms of what has been lost as a community. So it's important that we examine what has happened and look at what has happened in order to move forward from it, because it's reached to an impasse that if things don't change, nothing can really move forward. And our desire from this is that this really does become a co-partnership with the trust, yeah, in terms of that whatever's happening, those decisions can't be made without somebody from the community present when the corporate mind is present, right? So when the corporate mind is making its plans, we need to be there. We need to be standing right there to make sure that whatever happens in the future is in the interest of this community. Now, we've been kept out of the decision process for far too long, the planning processes, and our experience as a community is by the time we hear consultation, decisions have already been made. So we don't want to be ending up in that situation again where plans are being put forward as consultation. We need to be involved from the first move, from the first step. We need to know what's going on. Yeah? Like I said, tonight is about us. You know, a lot of us have expressed a lot of stuff over the last 3 years that has led to this point. What it's about now is feeding our stories into this process. Yeah? Because from this process now, there has to be things that come out of it. This isn't just a talking shop, yeah? And also, what I would ask everybody to do is to treat this issue as you would treat any other issue. It's been a very hard and long road to get the elephant in the room on the table and to have this discussion. It's been very, very difficult on many levels because it's not something that people want to deal with or talk about, yeah? And I'm going to ask the community, the whole of the community, yeah, to be open to this process, yeah? And to actually look at what institutional racism is, yeah? Look at what racism is, yeah? Because right now, look what's happened in the last 24, 48 hours. Things are getting worse in this country, yeah? And that's because the disease of racism has not been dealt with, yeah? The overt things, all right. It's not so easy to get away with that now, yeah? But the covert, institutionalized aspects are the things that are destroying us on a daily level, and it has not changed, yeah? So we need to deal with this now, because as you look in this country, what's happening now, do you want to go back to 1958? No. Yeah? We want to go back to those times now, because we go in there, and you know what it is? There's a disease, and we need to cut that disease out. Yeah, it's 2018 now. Yeah, it has no place in this space and time, and we need everybody who is part of this community, yeah, that wants to move forward to actually stand up and say, no, this is not acceptable anymore. We're not going to accept it anymore, because if you don't, you leave it to just a handful of us to keep putting our hands up and saying that someone's standing on our foot and being ignored. Yeah. So the same way as a community, we fought collectively for what? For the stables, we're still fighting for that now, yeah? For the nursery that we lost, the library, the college, all of these issues were valid issues, right? So is this. And this is at the core of why people in positions of power and privilege believe that they're better than us. Believe that they're superior. Why? Because it's in the education system. It's in the programming of the society that we live in. Unless we deal with that, nothing changes. Yeah? Because institutional racism is something that's hard to actually bring to the table because it is covert. Yeah? It's easy to hide it. It's easy to push it under the carpet. Those days are over now because we're here now. Yeah? And we're having this discussion. The elephant in the room is blowing its trumpet. Yeah? And we need to listen. And we need to realize as a community, we need to do what we have done before. Yeah? Those who came before us fought against it. yeah? And that's what created the legacy of this community that is known on a worldwide level. We have affected society, yeah, through our battle against these things, yeah? We affected this country, we affected other countries. We have had a contribution to the development of this society on a positive level. This is what we have to do again now, by talking about the things that nobody don't want to talk about and bringing it to the table, yeah? So, as I said again, talking to the community, please, listen to what we're saying. Don't just react to what we're saying. Think about what you're saying before you say it, right? Yeah? Because this is a serious issue and it's just as legitimate as any other issue that you want to talk about. So we're asking people not to jump up and say, well, what about this and what about that? Yeah, they all exist, but this exists too. And this issue is at the root of why RBKC is the way that it is. It's at the root of where this country got its wealth from, where how RBKC became rich, and our people are at the root of that history, yeah? So it's a historical issue, yeah? People still hold certain perspectives they've held for hundreds of years, yeah? And they still see us in the same way. This is the reality. So we have to challenge that now, yeah? Because we can't be living in someone else's perception. And our perceptions, if we're living as if our perceptions are not reality, what does that do to your own psyche? If my reality is always my perception and not my reality. Yeah? This is what we're dealing with. Yeah? So, we're going to talk some more. I could talk for a long time, but I don't want to. I want us to actually get what's going on here, because the world is changing. The universe is changing. This country is changing, yeah? It's a new paradigm, yeah? We need to bring spirituality back into what we do. And I don't mean religion, I mean spirituality. Knowledge of self and who we are and being in tune, you know? Tutu Foundation talk about Ubuntu, yeah? I want to see that Ubuntu from this process. That means, that we are because, I am because we are. That means if we don't get justice, if we don't get equality, if we don't get what is necessary for us, then nobody has it. And if this issue isn't dealt with, then nobody is safe either. Because when it happens to us and nothing is dealt with, who comes next? It's going to be you next. Because the people who look down on us don't just look down on us, they look down on a lot of people, divide and rule. Do you understand? Yeah? So our issue is core to the whole liberation of what's going on for everybody. Because this is the root cause of people's madness. Yeah? This is the root cause. Yeah? As a terms of reference, we've added something to this terms of reference that goes like this. Yeah? It was a speech by His Imperial Majesty. Yeah? He said, until the philosophy that holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, there will always be war. Let's hold 1 minute silence for those who came before us, and then I'm going to pass on the mic, yeah? Bless it. Ashe, give thanks. Meridani, time changes. I'm going to pass on to Alan.
Thank you, Niles. The issue of racism was first brought to me at the 2015 AGM. and then again at the 2016 AGM. And at the time I made a mistake. I thought that those discussions about racism were all about individuals, individuals, some of whom were dead, and many who would not be able to, in a sense, defend themselves. What I subsequently realised is that we were talking, as Niles has just mentioned, about institutional racism. We were talking about unconscious bias, possibly conscious bias. And I'm certainly ready to admit, and I imagine most in the room would, that we all have our biases, both conscious and unconscious. So I think this is a great process that we are engaging in. I believe and hope it will be transformative. We are very conscious at the Trust that this is the start, not the finish. It will be very important that when we get to the end, when we understand the report that will be delivered to us, that we act on it. And the Trust is committed to doing that. And all else, the only other thing I want to say tonight is I want to say thank you to Niles as the co-chair of the group, and indeed all of the other members of that group. And I want to say thank you to Nadia from the Tutu Foundation. The meetings that we've had so far in designing the process have given me a great deal of confidence in that process, and I hope as you engage in it too, that you will experience the same thing. Thank you.
I'm not as eloquent as, can you hear? I'm not as eloquent and freestanding as Niles is, so I have to use a speaking note, but I've thought quite hard about this. First of all, thank you very much for attending the launch of this important review into institutional racism at the Westway Trust. My name is Dr. Habashi, and I'm leading the review on behalf of the Tutu Foundation. Now, this review comes at a very poignant time for all of us. Next year will be 20 years since the Macpherson inquiry into the death of Stephen Lawrence, an inquiry which came about because people campaigned, protested and lobbied. That inquiry was not given to the people, it was fought for and by the people. This is the reality of race and racism struggle. This is also the history of North Kensington, an area which has been at the heart of the struggle for race equality since 1948, when the Windrush generation came to the UK. Struggle and the pursuit of racial justice has always been central, whether it be the Rackman housing, the riots, the murder of Kelso Cochrane, or Mangrove 9. We are here today undertaking this review nearly 20 years after a seminal inquiry which brought into public consciousness institutional racism, an inquiry we were told was a watershed in race relations in the UK, because organisations like Westway 23 and people here like Niles, Toby and Enzi campaigned, protested and lobbied for racial justice in relation to the provision of services, funding and opportunities to gain benefit from the land under the Westway. Bevan Powell took a strategic lead in recognising the need for a review process, and as part of its aspiration to be a leading partner in the community, the Trust listened, reached out, and so we are here. This review is important as it's your opportunity to tell us about whether institutional racism has existed, exists within the Westway Trust, and if so, how it has manifested and its impact on the communities served by the Trust. We have developed the review process by establishing and sustaining the Community Advisory Group to the review, which, as Niles and Alan have said, is jointly chaired by them both. And we are very privileged to have members of that group here today: Sakina, Alex, Malcolm Phillips and Angela Spence, and unfortunately Miss Lee wasn't able to attend today. We have a review advisory board which ensures that the way that we conduct the review is robust, and I'm delighted that Charles Critchlow has taken the time to join us here today. We have developed a review process which is based upon the principles of integrity, trust and confidence, and as part of this we have spent valuable time in ensuring that members of the community are enabled to fully participate in the review process, which is in 3 stages. Now, if you can see behind me, can I move that away? Okay, this is the portal, okay? So we talk about the review being 3 stages of the review. The first stage is that we've been gathering and reviewing documented evidence and decision making. And this process started on the 31st of July. Now the second stage is, if we go down, scroll down, down, no, up, sorry, up. Yeah, more. Okay, more. Okay, so more. Yeah, so call for evidence, if we just can go up in there, call for evidence review. Can we go into there? Yeah, the review. Down, yeah, if we click on there. So this is a public call for evidence. So what we're requesting from you all is that you look at this document very carefully. We've developed a series of questions around key processes of the trust, around community, around, go down, around access to services, funding, service opportunities, and employment, and then the future recommendations. And what we ask of you is that you submit your evidence and your testimony about the questions that we've asked. And you can do that in 2 ways. You can either go through the portal and submit your evidence, or we also have a free phone address that you can send your evidence to. The third part of the review is the interview stage. So if we go back, we scroll down, scroll down, and we can see we have here, we're going to do a schedule of interviewing. So first process is we're doing documentary evidence. Second process is that we're looking for submissions for yourself. The third process is we want to go back down, go back up, is that we're requesting interviews with people, and that keeps in with the important oral tradition of understanding people's experiences and their lived experiences. So you can do this in one of two ways. You can either book your appointment with me electronically, and those interviews will start from the 21st of January to the 20th of February. They will be held in 4 locations in the community. So it'll be at Acklam Village, here. Someone help me out here because I think I've forgotten. Acklam Village. They will be also the Westway Trust, Kensington, Chelsea, Social Council, and the Venture Centre. Okay? So we're doing these interviews 7 days a week until this process is finished. So that's that. But it's critical that you play a part in the review and be part of the transformation. So you can use this to book interviews with me, but you can also contact the Secretary of the Review, Christina Peer. We're very user-friendly people. We do not bite. We're accessible. So you need to just contact us with any queries that you might have in terms of how you can enable you to participate in the review. Now, in terms of the review, this is a secure portal. So when you submit evidence to us, the Trust will not have access to any information put on the portal. And that means the submissions that you put in, and it also means the transcripts and the audio recordings that we do as part of the interviews. The only access will be myself and Christine O'Keefe, the Secretary of the Review, and because he's a member of the Review Advisory Board, it will be Charles Critchlow and my other colleague, Dr. Bankole Coe, who we've all worked with very closely previously. So access is very much restricted. In terms of, we've got a Review Advisory Board in terms of, we've got a Review Advisory Board which Charles Critchlow is a member of, and that Review Advisory Board will ensure that our processes and procedures and what we bring forward is very, very robust. Our aim is to submit the draft report to the Trust and the Community Advisory Group to the review by the 15th of May. However, that's dependent on the number of people who actually submit evidence and request interviews. Okay, so we don't know what we're going to get until we get everything in. But this review is an important opportunity which is being led and informed by the community. Please support the review by getting involved in responding to our call for submissions and requesting an interview. We want to listen and we want to understand what's going on, and we want to work with you to be part of the transformation. And I will take questions after.
Thank you very much. First of all, can I just say I'm in complete solidarity with everything that Brother Now said at the beginning. and in complete solidarity with the community. Obviously, I've been asked to be part of this because I've had quite a lot of experience in other reviews within the criminal justice realm over the last 20, 30 years, actually. All I would say really is that racism, white supremacy, institutional racism, it's not going to die of natural causes. It's not going to die of natural causes. We have to be actively engaged in the process of making sure that the vision for the future that we have in this country, as Brother Now said, is one that we want, is one that's desirable for us. And tackling institutional racism is an incredibly important aspect of that, because it destroys our humanity, it destroys our potential. I mean, you see it every single day on the streets of London. What do we think the death of so many of our young men in particular, what do we think that's all about? You know, this is all part and parcel of tackling, you know, the ills of white supremacy, institutional racism, however we define that. Straying off the agenda slightly, my role is basically to make sure that we stick to the terms of reference for this inquiry, and to make sure that we stick to that whatever we do in terms of establishing whether there is institutional racism or not, that we stick to the definition. We're working towards the Macpherson definition. And I think we're pretty much, I don't have to tell you what racism is. We know what it is. We've lived our lives in this country. For some of us, a pretty long time. So it's not for me to tell you what racism is, except to say that I will be sticking robustly to the terms of reference. And I'm not getting paid to do this. I was asked at very short notice, to be a part of this independent advisory group, and and I said yes. I've made my way here because racism, institutional racism, whether it's in Moss Side, I'm from Manchester, is the same whether it's in Manchester or whether it's here. I don't know this community that well, but I know from the spirit, and Brother talked about spirituality, from just speaking to the brother and one or two others, that there's a real desire to see something really positive come out of this, yeah? And, I would like to just add, my word to the brother in saying that, I would encourage you to engage with the process. I know, when we look at the portal, we think, oh, well, what's all that, we get put off by stuff like that, yeah? But it's what we have to do, unfortunately, if we want to come out on the other end, yeah? But obviously, if that's not for you, then there's an interview process, and it's really just telling your story, your narrative, and making it plain. Sometimes, we talk about this stuff, but then when we get into polite company, we kind of dress things up too much. And then at the end of it, we wonder why recommendations and things like that, why it's off center. It's an opportunity now to make things plain, yeah, into the process. And obviously at the end of it, there's a commitment given that something will be done about this. Then you hold them to account. You hold them firmly to account. So that's all I have to say. I didn't really have any prepared remarks, but obviously I want to get to know the community, and I hope to really spend quite a lot of time getting to know folks actually, You know, generally the folks on the committee, you know, we've done through stuff like this in Manchester, and you know, I give an open invitation, you know, because I think we've got to be in solidarity with one another wherever we are in this country, because our problems, our issues are similar. I mean, back in the day, you know, go back, you know, 30, 40 years ago, I think there was quite a lot more solidarity, I think, around the country in communities, whether it's Moss Side, down these sides, Liverpool. I think, you know, I'd love to see some of that spirit coming back into into the community. So I'm just going to leave it there, and really look forward to being part of the process. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks for that. Yeah, one of the things that has made this more possible, as we was just mentioned there, is about we have to have access. You get what I'm saying? We have to be able to move freely. The fact that we actually have been in a house where we're basing all of our movements from at the moment and be able to work with the community. So all this community can be here today is vitally important. Because if you don't have a house or a home to base, to centralize and organize, then how do you do it when you're scattered? So it's very important that we have our bases where we can centralize and organize. That's what's going on here right now, right? And obviously it's ironical, the situation that we've been occupying this space and now it's got to this point, but that shows you that things are changing, because this kind of stuff don't happen every day. So let's acknowledge that. Let's acknowledge that there is something happening in our environment that we can all get involved in. We can all play a part in actually truly regenerating Lambeth Grove, truly developing this place for what we need for our community. Yeah? This is what this is about. So even we're dealing with institutional racism, we're still dealing with community self-development and self-empowerment right across the board. Because like I said before, your liberation is also based on our liberation. And no one don't get nothing unless everyone gets it, yeah? When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. And as Charles said, if you don't know and understand the global system of white supremacy, everything else you think you know will only confuse you. So it's going to be a challenge, yeah? But let's rise to the challenge and let's move forward. What I'm going to do now, because I could talk all night about this subject, but I'm not going to. Today is about us getting engaged in the process, yeah? And how you can get involved so that this goes through and the right recommendations are made, because it's already accepted that whatever comes out of this review has to be accepted. It's not going to be refuted. Our voice has to be heard. And those of you that know me already know that I'm not going to put up with nothing. Do you get what I'm saying? If it's not true and it's not a real process, we will blow it out of the water straight away, I guarantee you. Because you know we ain't going out like that, right? We're here because change is here. Let it down, your time changes. As in, what I want to do now, briefly, because what we want people to do also is be able to talk to everyone who's here tonight, talk with everybody, and see how you can get involved. Because that's the most important thing right now. These stories need to be told. Also, from our side, if there's anyone who's totally uncomfortable with the process or how it's being done, who doesn't want to go on Google or whatever, come and talk to us. Because as at the village here, we will be more than willing to try other ways to do that and find other ways to get evidence in. So if the internet thing don't work for you, that's not the only way. Do you get what I'm saying? If the interview don't work, that's not the only way. Come and we will work out a way to get that story told, because that is the most important thing, whichever way it is done. And if we need to develop more extra ways to do that, just come and tell me. And we'll work on that and make it work, yeah? What I was going to say, if no one else has got anything to add to that, I was going to ask if anyone has any questions, yeah, from the people who come tonight, yeah? Yes, Fiddle. Okay, I think the definitions is in the handouts, yeah? Right, so there's handouts here of the whole process. There's 3 sheets there that you can look at, and there's also the link for the portal that you can submit your evidence to. But within that paperwork, it gives you the definition of institutional racism from the McPherson report.
Yeah, question. See, first up, salute for making this thing happen. My question is based upon past experience. We talk about institutionalized racism, which was a term that came in the McPherson report. That was 20 years ago. It was found to be racistly or institutionally racist. 20 years later, have the police changed? After the evidence came out, 20 years later, same police force, same systems. So my concern is that this inquiry goes on and the findings come out. You know, I already have my opinion. How will you make sure that the systems are put in place to actually act upon this?
I'm going to say something before I pass it to Alan, but I'll talk for myself then basically, yeah? We're not just involved in a process that's not based upon our own self-empowerment already. If you get what I'm saying? Whether the trust decide to change or not, change is coming. Yeah? And we're already in a process where we're here, in this place where we are now. We don't have a license, right? We're taking that into our own hands. Do you get what I'm saying? So it would be sensible of those who are in positions of power and privilege to listen to what they're saying and work with us now at this point. Because if what you're saying did come to pass and nothing happened and nothing changed, I guarantee you there will be change still, because we will make it happen.
So we really are committed to change here, and as part of that, when the report comes out, we've said that we'll respond probably within about a month, because we'll have to take it to the board, and in our response we'll say what we're planning to do about it, and we'd like to be held to account that we actually follow through with that. All organisations need to change, and there's no doubt that the trust needs to change, and that's something that goes on. It won't stop with this inquiry. It will need to go on beyond that. But specific to this inquiry, the trust will publicly respond within about a month of receiving the report, and that will be, if you like, the litmus test if you can hold us to account.
So can I ask a follow-up question in this case? Are you prepared to give your word to the people here that you will act upon the findings to the best of your ability, making sure things happen on behalf of this community? Give your word and I'm good to go.
Yes.
Yeah?
Nothing else, just yes.
Thank you.
You say held to account. How do you expect us the community to hold to account?
That's a very good question. To be honest, I don't at the moment know the answer to that, because I don't know what the recommendations are going to be. But that will be a part of our response, saying this is how we intend to react, this is how we propose that we measure whether we're doing it or not doing it. And we'll invite the community to come forward with their own, if you like, litmus test as to whether we're doing what's supposed to be doing or not. I can't define it now precisely because I don't know what the recommendations will be. But I think that's absolutely key, that we have to come back with things which are kind of measurable in the best way that we can, because otherwise, what's the point?
We're not beyond measuring it, because, like I said, once we know there's evidence there, it's been accepted, and maybe it's not acted upon, what do you expect us to do? Or what do you expect the people in the community to do? How they can empower themselves to come and act upon your inaction to make sure that there is action? Without, putting themselves at risk or putting themselves in positions, again, like we've done here.
So I think there's hopefully quite a lot of channels through which that can happen. Right at the moment, 5 of the trustees live or work within the area of benefit. And when we get a sixth trustee, which we're looking for right now, 6 of them will. We also formed, as you may or may not know, but nearly a year ago, the Charitable Purposes Committee, which is staffed up, some of them at present here tonight, by people who live in this area. And what the Trust does with its resources is very much guided by that Charitable Purposes Committee, by you guys. So if you help us set the direction as to what it is that we'll be doing. So those are 2 channels. On that committee? Yes. Yes, and Monica chairs it, but there are other members, some of whom are present here tonight, who are just local, they're not necessarily trustees.
There should be a few.
Oh, there are?
Okay.
There are.
Trustees who are from the local community.
Yes. But I think the question is a very fair one, and I'd like to think that maybe we can create some channel where if an individual feels that we're not up to standard, that they can come to us with that complaint. We should have that as well. I beg your pardon?
Whose job is it to enforce that? Like, you will bring someone within the the standard that is measured. If you have to create the measuring process, then you have to pay someone to make sure. I mean, how long is the duty standard going to be involved in that? They're going to be dependent on the goods within the people from the community that was allowed.
I'm going to pass it back to Alan in a minute, but I just wanted to say, like, up to this point now, we have no reason to trust the trust, right? That's why these questions are being asked. We don't have any reason to trust this process, right? But that's why I'm here. Because you know that how I stay in relation to this, I'm not going to let that pass. Yeah? And the other people that's on this board that's joining in is not going to let that pass either. Yeah? So what I'm saying is, I don't have any reason to trust the trust right now, yeah? But if they don't do what they're supposed to do in this process, there will be repercussions. Yeah? It's an opportunity for the trust now to change and do something different. If that doesn't happen, then we're already on the road to our own liberation, right? Regardless of what happened. So what I'm saying is, this thing is rolling already. Yeah? Whatever comes out of this process, change is rolling already, yeah? We've got to make sure that the right recommendations come out of this, and also as a community advisory group, we are going to respond to what comes out of it. It won't just be the trust responding to it. We will be responding as to what we think about that review and what happened, and whether we support it or not, or whether we agree with it or not. It's not a foregone conclusion yet. I believe that if it is dealt with properly, the result is a foregone conclusion, because I can see all the people in here who have experienced institutional racism in this community. I can see you all in front of me here now. So if we make sure this process works, that means everyone that's here also keep an eye on the ball, because that's one thing we do sometimes. We get into something and we take our eye off the ball and we miss the opportunity. If we all keep our eye on the ball right now, it has to go in the right direction, because we're all monitoring it, we're all keeping an eye on it. I'll pass it back to Alan so he can...
So ultimately, any important governance matter is the responsibility of the trustees. And so they're the ones who should be held to account. But they should also be informed, they should also be informed by the Charitable Purposes Committee, because that's, if you like, our lightning rod into the community. It's not the only rod into the community, but it's an important one. So I don't think I have more concrete answers for you at this moment, but it's an important point you raised. And I think you had a question here at the front. Was it? Oh, sorry, Toby.
Really just bringing back, there was a clear statement that was that everybody here knows what racism is. But I really have to challenge that. Because the simple fact is that here in the United Kingdom in 2018, people clearly, absolutely do not know what racism is. They do not know what racism is. They barely know what institutional racism is. They don't know the difference between racism and racialism. They don't know the difference between the power structures of what you have as a black man and what you have as a black woman, or a white man and a white woman, or anything else. People have racism completely confused. Even if you go into the dictionary and get the definition from the dictionary, it's not up to date with what's going on. So every time you start bringing up racism as someone who lives it, who experiences it, as somebody who deals with it on an emotional level, as someone who deals with it on a mental or intellectual level, you're in another world. You're in a whole nother space. And I don't mean that by perception, I mean that in reality. You're in a different space. Now, in 2016, at the AGM at Bevington School, you were challenged on racism. You were challenged on your knowledge, your specific knowledge on the Equalities Act. And you stood up, Alan Brown, and you stated that you hadn't even read the Equalities Act, that you didn't even know the wording of the Equalities Act. So what we have is someone who's being told to look at racism and told to look at this issue of equalities, who is leading an £8 million organisation in one of the most deprived areas in the country, and you don't know the basics of the law around it. You actually accepted that, but you didn't know that. And that's just one instance. So we have a serious, serious problem here in the UK where people simply think that racism is calling me a nigger and calling me a gollywog, yeah, which I've had enough in my life. But it goes so much beyond that, so much further than that, and yet you still get white people coming in and saying, that's not racist, that's not racist. Man on the tube the other day, black face, sitting there on the tube, on a video, hit 50,000 views. A black woman, young black woman saying, what are you doing sitting there in blackface? Man's just sitting there, what? I've got no problem with it. What's the problem? People commenting under that video that blackface is not racist. And posting pictures of Damon Wayans' film, some book film from the 1990s, with them dressed up as white women saying, see, look, black people can do it too. That is the reality of racism in the UK in 2018. And so I really think that this review desperately needs to actually address our fundamental lack of knowledge and understanding of what race and racism is here in the UK. And until we get that point, people like yourself have got no chance.
So when you asked me about the Equalities Act, rather as if I asked you to quote the Companies Act to me now, I wouldn't expect you to be able to do that. But what I would ask you to acknowledge, and then if you think there's something fundamentally wrong with the process that we've described, please raise it. But we are doing the best that we can. We think we are. Niles has overseen this process all the way through. If there's anything concrete in it that you think is badly constructed, if you may not have had a chance to look at it yet, then then bring it forward. But in good faith, we are doing our best here. I hope it works. I hope it satisfies you, and I know that's a tough hurdle to cross. If you would like me to read that.
No, come on. Yeah, why not? Yeah, go on. Go for it. It's not that long. It's not that long, is it?
Yes, this is, I think, actually in our document, isn't it? The collective failure of an organisation to provide an appropriate and professional service to people because of their colour, culture, or ethnic origin. It can be seen or detected in processes, attitudes, and behaviour, which amount to discrimination through unwitting prejudice, ignorance, thoughtlessness, and racial stereotyping. And all I can say to that is here.
Do you think the Western Council doesn't start the process?
I'm going to not judge the outcome of this until we see it in a few months' time.
Why is it taking 40 years?
I had my hand up what you told me, I gave my turn. You can't have males just shouting. You need to obey.
Hold up a second.
I'm this, boys.
Hold up, Maury. We did just offer you the microphone, so here it comes again.
It's not a difficult question. My question is just that actually some of the points you raise that we have to include in our submission are quite complex. So for example, or maybe that's just me, you know, you've asked things like, do you believe that the provision of Westway Trust services and funding have been fair and equitable to all? Now, does that require that we have access? Is it just the Westway website to find out what services they actually provide for us to help us to make a judgment on that? I mean, we can use personal experience, obviously. Yeah, but we also, to be honest, for it to be in any way scientific or, you know, valid, we need to know what services they have been expected to provide, or what they are responsible for at the moment. And I mean, I can find access to that. Hopefully, I'm just asking, is there any way you can sort of point people to where they can find the answers if they're going, oh, what do they do? What services do they provide? Who sits on their board? How many black people are on the board? Where do they come from? Where's that information to help us to make a judgment?
A very, very good point. We'll look at that and make sure we get communication out there. A lot of it should be on the website, but we ought to make it easy for people to access that. And also something that has been pointed out to us quite recently is that it's not necessarily as easy to get the answers to those questions as I think you would like. There's an enormous amount of detail in things like report and accounts, but it's not very digestible. So I think in terms of the services that we provide to be able to answer that question, we'll work on getting a straightforward communication out there. We'll find some way of informing you as to where you can find it. Because I really would like to do that, actually, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding as to quite all the things that the Trust actually does, so it'd be good to get that communication out.
All right, it's a very good point. But what I'd like to add to that is that basically, some of those questions are framed in a way for directly people who've had those experiences. So if you've been denied, you've had bad service, or you've been denied opportunity or access, that is an opportunity for you to put your story forward in terms of how that has affected you. Because this is what it's about. It's about us actually relaying our experience, how this has affected us and it's going over the last 50 years, yeah? Right? So some of those questions, yeah, it might be hard to answer them in a wide sense in terms of what you're talking about, you're right. But I think that some of them are framed in a way to be able to trigger, to be able to people to be able to say, oh, this was the service I was providing, I wasn't satisfied with it. This is what happened when I tried to get access and I couldn't get access. So that is as important as, I'm not saying what you're saying is important, but it's as important for us to actually think about how we engage with the process in terms of what's happened to us, and look at also those questions framed. Because if there's no frame for a question that someone needs to ask, we need to look at that too. We need to create one, right?
And the questions are as well, the questions are a guide. Those are things that you need to look at. These are the things that we're specifically looking at in terms of this exercise.
Yeah, our question is why has it taken you so long to come here and speak about this? Why has it taken so long? Look how long the trust was being operational. Why is it now? Is it because the sport got in the lab growth? You're feeling a bit guilty? Or is it what the reason?
So I tried to touch on that. The first time that this was brought to my attention was just after I joined the Trust, and that was at the 2015 AGM, and then again at the 2016 AGM. And I made a mistake at the time, because I thought it was all about individuals, which it wasn't. Having recognised that mistake, we've now moved as quickly as we can to set this process in train. But I absolutely acknowledge that it shouldn't have happened 2 years before if I hadn't made the mistake that I made.
I find it hard to believe that running this North Kensington Community Trust for nearly 50 years or whatever, 40 years, and this is the first time you've actually had a meeting with the people in the area. Regardless of when you were the chairman, I find it amazing that an organisation sitting right in the middle of Laverick Road hasn't actually asked people to come forward and talk about anything that's happening in the area. Like, this is the first time and the only issue is that this is happening. It's like the spotlight is on Laverick Road, and you just making sure that when it falls on you, you can say, oh, well, I held a meeting with black people in the area about racism. Because Because I ain't seen this before, and I ain't seen you before. And, you know, I didn't know the North Kensington Community Trust asked for the opinion of the people that live in this area before. So I'm just wondering why it is coming now.
It may well be, and you will know better than me, because you've been involved in it for much longer, that the Trust has not communicated as well as it should have done with the community at large. That may well be. I can't speak to that. All I can say is that I'm actually convinced that we need to do this. It may be late.
No, I'm sure you are, because there's a lot of pressure on you. Sure. An organisation that has been elaborate roles. So I'm not going to repeat myself on that. It's like you're failing to understand the question that I'm asking you. Why has it taken so long for anybody, not just you, for anybody, going right back to Roger Maitland in the 70s?
It can't be answered because there's never been any desire to do that other than cover up things.